Good morning, everyone. I was going over Facebook and YouTube in the morning, like I do, and I just had the uncomfortable experience of watching Joe Rogan uh, interview, uh, is it Bostrom? Nick Bostrom? Should we assume the simulation has already been created? And he was doing, Nick Bostrom was doing a fantastic job of explaining or trying to explain the probability that we're in a simulation. Joe Rogan was doing a fantastic job of not playing along. So, and I'm glad, as uncomfortable as it was, I'm, oh, that's even worse. At least that disguises the bags. Okay. I'm, there are a lot of people out there that have the same resistance to this theory that Joe Rogan does. So he's not. I'm reading in the comments how he doesn't get it. His ego's too big for the simulation, and all the derogatory remarks about Joe Rogan and him not getting the simulation. I think he does get it. I think he gets this general idea of it, but he doesn't like it because he feels he's experiencing reality. When he looks around, everything is as real as could be, and he seems to be having trouble accepting that if you are in a simulation, you will have the exact same opinion. You imagine you're in a simulation and you look around, you're going, what is the evidence that I'm not? And there will never be evidence that you're not in a simulation unless somebody from outside the simulation comes in and tells you, or you see something like Nick was explaining, a window pops up and says, you are in a simulation, click yes to agree you understand. And that's never going to happen. Or even if it does, you're more likely, or you should more appropriately assume that you're having a hallucination or some sort of mental breakdown, because that stuff is crazy. The other thing that was, I think, or I should say, the thing that I think was the biggest hang-up for Joe and for a lot of people is assuming that if you're in a simulation, it's a simulation for you. That they're only simulating the Earth, and they're simulating it exactly the way it has to be, or exactly the way it was, to go through history to make sure we know what happened to Joe Rogan. And that simulated Joe Rogan is running around inside this computer program, and there's an outside observer, an outside Joe Rogan, looking in at the little Joe Rogan, doing Joe Rogan things. That's a video game hypothesis. That's trying to go back, or assuming you can load that simulation like a video game, a pre-save, and go back to your original character and have it go through its things again. I don't know if this will help anybody else. My idea of the simulation is a little more general and is not so human-centric, because the assumption that humans would be the ones to invent the first simulation would be uh, so egocentric that it has to be humanity as the ultimate designer for the ultimate technology to simulate all of reality and have all. More than likely, if there is a being that created a computer system to simulate the universe, it was probably not a human being. It probably wasn't a hairless monkey that likes to tug on his junk. You get what I'm saying? So it could be this 37 tentacled space creature that formed in space and has a brain as big as a planet, and that used those tentacles to make an even bigger computer to simulate universes, to simulate big bangs. So my personal idea of a simulation theory, if you care, is not that there are scientists or programmers wanting to simulate just the Earth and how Joe Rogan lived his life in detail. If I have to come from the perspective, if I was doing it, why would I simulate the universe? Other than to have fun, make the Earth go down like a Grand Theft Auto and cause havoc and have tons of crazy sex and kill people and invent stuff and be the god of that world. if that's your goal, well, then you're making a video game. To everybody else in that video game, they would still think they were real, and they would seem real to you if you were a good programmer. But for me, the simulation theory is more broad than that. I would want to see how the universe unfolds and how, given the physics that we understand now, because I could change this, given the physics that we experience, I would want to see all the different variations of Big Bangs that could happen. So imagine I have a computer system, giant quantum computer system, so it takes very little energy, it's super fast, has all the mystical attributes of quantum in the name, and I have it rigged or set up so that when I flip the switch, it initiates the physics at the beginning of the Big Bang as we understand it, because I'm trying to figure this out, and it would go through the expansion, the cooling, the planets, the suns. It would form everything as we think it would, but not by being directly directed. So you put in the physics, you hit go, there's a Big Bang, and everything falls like a pachinko machine, as it would probabilistically with the program. Now, I would want to get to the end, and doing it in real time would be like looking out the window, watching the universe unfold in real time, and I want to do it faster. So I would want to go from the Big Bang to the end of time, as physics was programmed, as fast as possible, just to see, the full spectrum of the Big Bang unfold. Now, in that simulation, I flip the switch, it goes bang, zip, and in a blink of an eye, the entire program runs till the end of time in that simulation. During that blink of an eye, countless species may have evolved on the planets that had formed, rose, died, took over the whole universe, died out. All kinds of scenarios, real life scenarios, would have unfolded because I programmed in all the basic physics and the computer just ran its program. And so if on one of those Big Bang experiments, an Earth formed, just like this one, and Joe Rogan on that evolved, was born, humans came up, Joe Rogan came in existence, had his podcast, and was in his chair asking Nick Bostrom if this is the real reality, the really, really real reality. I would never know it, and neither would he. And in the blink of an eye, it would all be over for me, the programmer. Joe Rogan would have experienced his whole life. He would maybe even have experienced a virtual reality, a simulation inside the simulation, because that could go almost infinitely deep if you're, again, using the magic quantum label for computer, the mysterious energies of quantum. So there's a little bit of magic technology in the thought experiment. But I think he's hung up on I'm important, and he's experiencing the original reality. And he is experiencing his original reality as real as any other reality. Because in the next experiment, I'll hit go again and see if something else happens. Joe Rogan may not evolve. There may not be humans in the next Big Bang experiment. It's if you take a big step back and you're doing experiments for the Big Bang and for the universe in general, if species intelligences evolve inside that matrix, that may be secondary to whatever the programmer is looking for. And so there's suffering, there's a rise and fall of empires, there's the whole ocean of time and experience goes on. And as the experimenter, I just want to see what happens at the end, if it happens the same way every time, because I got a project, I probably have somebody funding it, or I'm a million tentacled squid in space and I'm just bored. So there's a lot of ways you can be in a simulation, be the original in that timeline of not being in a simulation, except the whole universe existence is the simulation. And you're in that as an evolved creature inside, because you evolved naturally in a simulation. So there's not a program telling you to do this, telling you to do that, and setting everything up. Creatures or species could evolve, intelligences could evolve naturally in a simulation that's simulating the universe, reality. So he could be the original. He could be the humans right now. There might not be any other simulations yet. We may not have gotten there. But at the same time, we are still wholly existing inside a simulation of the universe, of reality, existence. And largely, it doesn't fucking matter. It's as real as anything else. Uh, uh, Maybe if Nick Bostrom had asked the question when Joe Rogan was taking DMT, was experiencing DMT, was that real? Because you could apply that to the simulation theory as well. Uh, it happened in your head. Did you actually go to another universe? Probably not. Were the experiences real? Is what you experienced in that moment real? Of course, your experiences are real. Everything's real to some degree. It's just the degree you're comfortable integrating it. I'm still waking up. This was a weird video to wake up to. Good morning. Peace.